I'm in Donato's parking lot here in Milford, Ohio, because this is the only place that I've found in the whole area that has decent Wi-Fi. I have started a new Cash App pool for this coming week with a goal of $200. We have raised $85 so far. And so if $5 helps, anybody is able to help us get closer to the goal so I can close that out and be done with fundraising for the week, that would be amazing. The link is in the description. Not a whole lot of updates. I have been praying. What I noticed is that when I got this idea to start this, basically like a booth at the flea market, selling Catholic books, Christian books, Catholic DVDs, that kind of thing, and home decor, like Christian decor, what I forgot to do was pray about it. And so more recently I've been praying on, Lord, if this is obviously, he's going to slam the door in my face if it's not what he wills anyway. But I've been praying that this is the next direction that I should take. I don't see why it would be controversial in that the moment that a better door opens up in the future, I'm done. Like I definitely don't want to be doing flea marketing, and that is, as much as I have experience in that regard, I don't want to be doing that. Certainly not for the rest of my life. And so if something were to open up within the church, obviously I'm going to go that direction and leave that behind. But in the interim, I don't know how long I'm looking at until that door opens up, if it does. It could be 6 months, could be a year, could be a couple of years. And I want something to be able to do on the weekends to where I'm able to raise funding for the next week so that I really don't even have to continuously come here and ask for it. And hopefully maybe even be able to accept in-person donations and that kind of thing. I have a lot of thoughts about what I'm going to do with the booth. I think I'm going to have a couple of things. I thought about learning how to make rosaries, and I might make some nicer rosaries that I can put out, at a higher price where everything, if you purchase something here, it helps to feed the poor of Covington, Kentucky. And it would be a nice skill to learn, and I would be able to, maybe source some really nice like Benedictine crosses, and take some time to it's not like I need to make a ton of them, just have a glass display with different rosaries that I put out there for sale, and then continue obviously to do the missionary rosaries and all that. I'm thinking I may get like different kinds of crucifixes and that, and source my own basically dog chains and sell those. Very inexpensive, nothing crazy. I have noticed, so this is what I've been doing as well. This weekend here at the shed, I decided, I'm looking at everything and I'm saying, I think God wants me to sell almost everything that I've acquired over time to put back into the ministry again. So that means the statues, the book collection that I've created, with the idea that down the line, obviously I'm going to continuously just kind of come upon books. And should I ever be able to create that ministry for the homeless, with this idea of it basically being based on the rule of Saint Benedict in the future, that I'll be able to have a library there in the future anyway. This would complement that. Regardless though, I think it makes sense. I was looking around at the shed and thinking it's going to take me a while to try to replicate this. And I think what I've been doing, because it makes sense, this is how God often works with me, is this whole time I've actually been investing in something that's going to continue to fund the ministry. That makes actually a lot of sense. So I've been pricing the statues. I've been putting pencil prices on the first page of each book, on the blank pages. there's really gonna hardly ever be a book that's more than $5. Most of them are $1 to $3. So if you're gonna be in the Cincinnati area and you like Catholic books or Christian books, I mean, I'm resourceful in how I get them. I even have a man at the Rose Garden Home Mission who works there. Shout out to Mark, who has basically put a beacon out to some folks within the St. Vincent de Paul network, that I'm going to need Bibles. And so apparently there's going to be a lot of Bibles coming to me in this next week, and maybe I'll be able to set up something with him to where we can do that like once a month. That'd be great, for the purposes of both funding the ministry and also just giving them away out at the stand as well. It's a little bit of both. So I'm excited about this. There's a little bit of me that's why I wanted to pray on it more. And I ask that you all pray on it for me as well. And to please pray that God make this successful if it is his will to do so. I'm sure he will. I don't know why he wouldn't. Because I'm kind of be going into not enemy territory, but I flea marketed before, and I know the crowds, and I know the kinds of vendors and stuff that usually are there. And it's one of those things where this vision, well, I think there's going to be support for it. I think I had a very limited view of what flea marketing was by running the record store previously. So I was targeting a very specific demographic, and meanwhile, the demographic who I'm going to be targeting walked by most of the time. And they would look at my booth and just say, I'm not into AC/DC or Led Zeppelin or any of this stuff, and they'd assume there's nothing there for them. Down the line, I think I'm going to start small. So I think it's going to start with just sort of, from what I understand, I can get a booth for like something like $30, or like 2 booths for $40, and then you get a parking space as well. I might do the 2 booth thing. It depends on the size that I see and all that. I think that's per weekend, which would make sense. And then this is how it always works: is you slowly expand if you're going to expand. I would expand guilt-free into this particular niche that I'm going to be specializing in. And I did pick up a pretty good haul today on a very good price of Catholic, as well as like what I would consider to be Christian living type of books. So, it's a bit of a gamble, but at the same time, because my experience when I was running my record store was that books were not a very hot item. But then again, I didn't really have much of a selection of books, number one, at all. That was definitely not what I was specializing in. And I do remember that towards the end, as I was starting to expand into the furniture business, we had put out a couple of Bibles that we had come across, some nicer binding ones. And I do recall them actually selling decent. So we'll see. I think if God wills it to be supported, then it'll be supported. I do think it'll probably do better in that I'm going to be able to say this goes towards helping fund a ministry that I participate in down in Kentucky. And so you're not just really like supporting me in any way. Sure, I eat meals sometimes and I need to fill up my gas tank and all of that, but I mean, that's always required regardless for anyone that has to do this kind of work. It's kind of a given. But the more the merrier. I would love to expand what I do at the stand. I would like to be able to eventually have my own place again, to where I can cook things and spend more time making food rather than just always like sandwiches and stuff like that. I'd like to be able to in the future offer a better selection of food, healthier even. So, but that's where it is. Again, in the description, we've raised so far 85 of the $200 goal for this coming week for the ministry. That includes gas, that includes just being able to get food for the week, things like that. I was able to invest in the store today. It was about $40. Sometimes I say, what am I doing? And then I say, well, you've got to take some chances, and these are pretty low chances. So, and I can't imagine that if I'm promoting Catholicism and the Bible and artwork that promotes the Lord, I can't imagine, and especially just to fuel what's happening downtown, I can't imagine that he won't bless it. I really can't. End game is that I would really like to one day run something similar to what the sisters do. That, or again, just get folded into the broader network, meaning to where it's just all, the sisters run a free store of all kinds of stuff where they give out food every day, like tons and tons of food. There's a story, I think I shared this with you guys in one of the videos. So there's Mother Serafina, who's retired, Mother Superior Serafina. She started the place, but of course, if you asked her, she'd say Mary started it or Jesus started it. And because of basically health and her aging, a much younger woman by the name of Mother Claire has taken over. And in one of their newsletters, and I talked to them about this, one of the volunteers said, oh, this kind of thing happens all the time. But Mother Claire they got like a shipment of gallons of milk. And they had been giving it out. They got it that morning, and they'd been giving it out all day long until like early afternoon. And somebody came in who had already gotten a gallon and wanted to see if they could get another gallon. And Mother Claire said, let me go check to see what kind of supplies we have, and I'll come right back. And she went back to where the milk was, and she had done a count on it when it first came in, and there were like 125, and she did a count on it again, and there were 125 still. And apparently, I was talking to one of the volunteers, and that kind of stuff, that kind of weird stuff happens all the time there, which absolutely sounds like the God that I serve. I mean, from the multiplying of the fish and the loaves for the 5,000, which is actually one of the readings for today in the church calendar in ordinary time, and to just like the weird blessings that he brings my way, I could totally see him constantly blessing. I mean, that literally their free store is the result of lots of faith that they have poured into doing that, and God really rewarding that with his blessing. So it's just, we serve an amazing God. If you think that God doesn't show up for you, you're lacking in faith. You're not stepping out there. And I can say that because it's just true. Like, you're not stepping out enough. You really need to start getting bolder in service to the Lord. And that service to the Lord is service to those he has told us to serve, which is, when I was hungry, you gave me food. When I was thirsty, you gave me drink. When I was sick, you visited me. When I was in prison, you visited me. We're supposed to protect the widow and the orphan. We're supposed to heal the leper. The translation is to minister to those who are deemed undesirables or people that we're to avoid in the world. And if you're not doing that on a regular basis, robustly, I mean, far be it from me to say God won't do this or will do that. Far be it from me. But I have seen that these are the things that he rejoices in, and they weren't, from my perspective, they were not suggestions. It's not as if Jesus told us to do these things and was just sort of like, but believing in me is good enough. You don't have to obey me at all. You should obey the Lord because it's joyous. It's soul sucking to just pursue like money and material gains and all of that. Like I look at some of these guys driving by in real fancy cars or just noise making. You know what I'm talking about. And I suppose I can't help but judge it to some degree. I'm like, wow, what a misuse of your funds, in my opinion. You know, you spent how much did you spend on that luxury vehicle, honestly? And meanwhile, it's like in the screw tape letters where Wormwood's getting written to, and they're talking about how like the daily newspaper has people all caught up in the mundane ordinariness of life. And that too, you couple that in addition to people are just sort of living an ordinary, realistic life. I feel bad for you. And a lot of them they call themselves Christian, and they go to they sit on the pews, and they don't really believe in God. I mean, they say they do. I have friends. Let me put it a different way. Who are somewhere in their journey with the Lord. But I have one friend in particular who I think of, who I love very much. Great person. Has helped me in many ways since this whole journey began, a lot. But we were talking one day. Well, I don't pray for small things. Like if I lose my keys or if I can't find my keys in the morning or something like that, I'm not going to pray that God bring me my keys or that I find them or anything like that. I just find that to be kind of silly. No, not silly at all. God wants us to live closer to that than to the alternative, which is, he would rather us pray for everything than to pray for very few things, or to say, well, this is beneath God, I'm not going to put it on his plate. There's really nothing beneath God. He literally loves when he sees one of his children praying to him frequently and realizing that when they want something, the world tells them to be practical, but he's been telling them, come to me. Please come to me. Send up a prayer. You know what? I can absolutely find it. I can and I will. Straight up. Like I'm not making it up like, oh, this is just some joke. Like the night when, by the way, we need to pray for Brother Robert. I put up his testimony. Robert is still homeless. Let's do an update on that. And I know that he would be perfectly fine with that. So since we did the video with Robert, with the Rose Garden Chapel in the background and where I had him doing rosary, Robert he was still in homelessness at that time, but he has fallen, unfortunately, into more abject homelessness, and his mother now is homeless with him, and they live in a park down in Covington, Kentucky. And there's some, without divulging much, some issues and patterns have reemerged in his life. And I just pray that we pray that he be drawn closer and closer to God. I do believe that the best container to explore your relationship with God is always going to be the Catholic Church, especially praying on the rosary. I feel like if I could only get these men and women to pray the rosary regularly and faithfully and serve, like pray the rosary plus serve often, it will absolutely change their life, and they will have no doubts that God is there operating in their life. But getting there is a different story. So I brought up Robert for another reason, but just please pray for him. If you're in the Covington area and you're able to help him in some way, whenever I can. I mean, every day after I set up, I go and I find him and I give him leftovers, or I'm always trying to take care of him because I feel like God put him in my stead. And I feel like too, there's a tendency because when I first met Robert back at Shelter House, a year and a half ago, and as I'm leaving the parking lot with his tobacco at the time, because he wanted me to throw it away, he's like, "Hey, Adam," and I turn around, and he's got this twinkle in his eye, and he's like, "Maybe I'll be your first testimony," and he became my first testimony on here on YouTube. That's why I was sharing with, because the electronics attack, where prayer answered. We're talking about prayer though here, 100%, where prayer answered a problem I was having because the devil was attacking my electronics the night before Robert and I bumped into each other again and did that testimony. But there's been a tendency in me at first. I'm like, maybe slipping here, and I'm thinking, no, Adam, this is just the way. God's not done yet with Robert. It's not just, you don't just wave your hand and everything's fine again all of a sudden. This is like, it takes real work, investment, dedication sometimes to really help a person transform or change. And also too, in the end, you always have to be prepared. I had to learn that in Brown County Jail with some young men that I was working with, who we made rosaries together and were praying. And then at a certain point, they manifest on me, the one does especially, and basically turns on me completely, starts to espouse all these like Gnostic beliefs and all of that. And I just had to, it hurt me a lot at the time. And then I realized, I learned after that, I was like, Adam, you're too invested, brother. Like, you're too invested in the outcomes of what may happen as a result of you working with these people, and you have to get comfortable with the fact that you don't know whether you're watering or planting or what you're doing, or whether it'll ever take root at all in the end at all. And you got to be comfortable with that. But to go back to what I was saying, my electronics, if anybody's ever watched those videos, you know the story of what happened. But the night before I ran into Robert for that video, my phone, I could not get into my phone at all for like half a day practically. And no matter what I would do, I would try restarting it, I do it, and it would just stop, and it was in this glitch on the home screen. And finally, it's like late at night. I'm staying in the Sisters parking lot, right at the Rose Garden. And finally, it's getting later and later, and I've been freaking out for hours because I'm thinking, how am I? All my contacts are on here. I don't know how to get in touch with anybody. My phone number, all this stuff is lost. And I'm like, okay, I need to go down. Maybe I'll try to charge my device at Speedway down in Covington. So I drive down to Speedway. They let me try to charge it up. Doesn't work. I'm about to leave, and I swear to God, the attendant, I'm kind of lamenting to him about what's going on with me, and he looks with a smile at his coworker, and then he just says to me, "Have you tried calling Trinity?" No joke. And so I leave, and I'm thinking, as I'm going out the door, I'm like, you know what? This whole time, to go on to the praying for things thing, I haven't prayed about it. I haven't prayed because it's like this subtle. I was operating at that time under this assumption God knows what's going on all the time. He knows, he sees me. So, all this is just his sovereign will operating in my life. And I've learned even ever since then, no, he really, I think he really relishes in hearing us pray for the things that we want to need. So I'm right. Like, yes, he knows it's happening. He sees it, and he's waiting to see, are you going to call me? You going to call me up? You going to ask for my help? Because I can totally help. Don't just leave it at, I know where you're at. Like, ask for things and I may give them to you. And so I get back to the parking lot. I say a prayer. I set it on my chest. I just kind of hang out and I'm looking at the night sky. About 10 minutes later, I pick up my phone, I turn it on, and I'm in the phone. Stuff like that happens quite often, actually, in my life. So was that a small thing? I suppose you could say almost everything is small compared to God. All things that we may ask God's intervention for are kind of small in the grand scheme of things. But he wants to hear from us, and he wants us to go to him for everything. And so, like, thank you, by the way, to everyone, truly, to everyone who has ever donated, either to the Cash App or in person. Thank you all. God bless you all, and I thank the Lord for you. So I always attribute anything that comes in that fashion to him. Because honestly, I look at where I'm at right now. I've been homeless for over a year. I still have this van. I always have enough gas. I've literally never not had food to start out a day. There was that one day where I got rained out near the Basilica the one time, where that's another crazy story. Like, I've told you guys all these stories over time, but it's like, my whole stand got rained out and ruined the day before, and I was starting out with nothing. And I have some sandwiches. I was able to make just enough sandwiches in my thing. And I've been praying over, this was back when I was sleeping in the parking lot of Shelter House before they shooed me off of there. And I'm praying about it, and I'm saying, Lord, I really need a miracle today. I get there. This man named Ed Byron from Michigan. Ed, shout out if you ever watch the channel. God bless you, brother. It's stuff like that where, I mean, when you look back on it, you say, it's people that help to reaffirm our faith in God sometimes. And I show up, and I'm there earlier than usual. Because why am I there earlier than usual? Because I felt an urgency and an immediacy to rebuild. And I wanted more time to be out there for the day to try to get enough to rebuild. I get there early. Ed walks up down the street, like within 5 minutes of me getting there. And he just walks up and he hands me an envelope with $500 in it. Now, I had met Ed a couple weeks before. Him and his wife were out-of-towners visiting the Basilica. And he had done a donation that day. But for some reason, he said he felt led by the Lord to come and do that day. And so that night I was able to, the two tables that you always see in my videos and all that, those are bought by Ed's funds for that. And some of the coolers and stuff. I mean, I bought the coolers at St. Vincent de Paul societies and stuff like that. But it allowed me to rebuild and to make just simple things like being able to buy the markers and the boards to make the signs over again with, just stuff that just adds up over time, to which had been rained out the day before. Just stuff like that, to where I know for a fact, and that's going to be I pray that's always going to be my testimony to people, is quit. There's that meme that I identified with early on online, and it was very helpful. It said, if you're waiting on God, be a waiter and serve the tables. I took that meme and I ran with it, because I was there waiting on God, And it clicked with me on days where I would doubt things or whatever else. I'd remember it and I'd be like, that's what he wants to see. I feel like he oftentimes rewards us most too on the days where we do not want to show up. There have been many days doing this ministry where I'm starting off cranky, or or let's be honest, I show up and the person coming towards the stand is someone who, unfortunately, because it's me, I don't want to deal with first thing in the morning. I'm not quite prepared for it. And you still have to, you got to like grit your teeth and sort of look down and just say like, got to show up. You got to show up, brother. And that's because that's what you're here for. And to not allow that to get you, own everything. That's one thing I would like to give advice to anybody out there too. Quit pointing. It's so tempting. Well, that person was so difficult. This person's terrible. And I'm still going through this humbling experience. There have been many people who, as much as I say I've forgiven them, like I need to more actively forgive in prayer. But own your side of the relationship. That's all I'll say. I'll put it like that. Always look to, even though a relationship may not be, it shouldn't continue. Maybe the adversary literally has sent someone in on you, but just still make sure that you conducted yourself with as much integrity as you could, so that you know at the end of the day, because otherwise it's just too easy. Just go through life and blaming everybody else for all the problems that you go through. That's not, because sometimes, as much as you may think the criticism is unfair, maybe it's accurate. Maybe it is something you need to look at. The more that we look at things, even if they're just only slightly true, the more humble we become, actually. It helps to reduce our pride. What emboldens our pride is to just say, oh, it's just totally them. Oh my gosh, they're so difficult to deal with, and I just don't like dealing with that. Please just leave me alone. Oh my gosh, here they come again. That emboldens pride, because you're putting yourself on a pedestal and you're putting them down there. Whereas meanwhile, I mean, if I'm being candid and I look back on my life, there are years and years of my life where I cringe at who I was, and how much I must have made others cringe when I walked up on the scene. Because for much of my life, I had nothing really to talk about until I became born again, to use that term. I didn't have anything to talk about. I talked about what dead people talk about. Marijuana, filth, just whatever you fill the air with when you're minus Christ. And it's always, there's a guy that I volunteer with, I won't say where, who is an atheist, who says he used to be involved in churches and they hurt him. I think he was involved in some of the administrative stuff, and it left a bad taste in his mouth, and he won't do anything. Now, I like him, but I have noticed that he talks about nothing. Like, meaning he's nice, I can get on with him, no problem, but it's one of those guys that it's just constant bullshit talk, to where you're not actually talking about anything at all. Nothing real, nothing substantive. It's just all surface level stuff. But I'll give him credit. He's an atheist doing more than a lot of my Christian brothers and sisters are. What's that about? All right, we're going to hop off here. Just a quick update. So again, to summarize, If you would like to help the store, which will be starting in the next couple of months, which will help to offset a lot of that's the prayer anyway, help to offset some of the costs of running the stand in Covington, Kentucky. And if you're new to this channel, you don't know what I'm talking about, that stand hands out rosaries, lunches, Catholic books, and prayers in Covington, Kentucky on Madison Avenue, kind of near the police station and by the Rose Garden Home Mission run by the Franciscan Daughters of Mary. And if you would like to help in that regard and help me prepare for that, if you want to in your local, you can drop off Catholic books, kind of general Christian books, Christian living type of books, faith-based like DVDs, so like dramas that are like family friendly on the topic of God and faith, especially Catholic. I mean, I'm definitely, it's going to lean heavily towards Catholicism, but there'll definitely be like sort of like an entertainment section portion because, I'm even going to be carrying some of those like Amish romance novels. I mean, listen, I've run flea markets before. I know how it goes. You got to have something, a little something for everybody. Everybody's not looking to read a really heady exposition on the history of Christianity. Some of them just want a little light fluff before they go to bed. And then home decor too. Home decor that is Christian. So, and most explicitly Catholic. But I mean, the obvious is like depictions of like the Last Supper, Sacred Heart of Jesus, Immaculate Heart of Mary, famous Renaissance paintings or iconography of Catholic saints, that kind of thing. And obviously like maybe framed artwork of like Bible quotes and things like that. Just stuff like that, statues. And again, I'm going to be basically sacrificing, I would say like 95% of the shed to get this whole thing started, because I was looking at it, I'm just like, I basically have a store. I've been amassing this so that we can start this. And if I can just start something that generates a few $100s a weekend, I mean, that'll be good to go. I can still live in my van. It's all good. I'm waiting on God to open up all the right doors in the end. But in the meantime, this was the idea. So Madison Avenue by the Rose Garden Home Mission, Monday through Friday. Mondays, I usually am not set up till about 1. But the rest of the week, it's 12 on. And you can come and just drop those off. Canned goods, too. Canned goods, any kind of sealed food that is not out of date. Somebody came and dropped off, God bless them. I was able to use a couple of the items, but almost everything in the bag was out of date, and I had to just throw it away because I'm just not going to do that, because it's actually not even I'm not desperate for canned goods to that degree. So that would help. Financially, if you would like to help the ministry, I do have a Cash App pool operating right now for this coming week. Here in the description, you can click on that. I think we've raised to date so far $85 of the $200 goal. So if you'd like to help us get closer to the $200 goal, that'd be great. It just is peace of mind, So I'm gonna go home and I'm gonna start pricing these and get them kind of ready. And who knows, man, one of these days I'm gonna come on live and I'll start showing you the store that we're starting up. All thanks to the generosity of folks and for God having basically he gave me an offer I couldn't refuse, Just sent me off on a completely different path back in 2024, December of 2024. And I've really not looked back since. It's just been quite the journey. So thank you very much. God bless you all in Jesus' name. Have a wonderful night. I'm going to go back to the shed now. Take care. Bye.